All right, thank you so much for everyone that has joined so far. Again, this is NREL's webinar presenting our new tool, the procurement analysis tool that is focused on helping stakeholders look into their utility scale energy procurement options nationwide for any facilities, at least within the contiguous 48 states on the main, sorry, on the continent. So my name is Jeff Cook. I am going to be talking with you today along with my colleague Shishmita Jena. We will be giving you a live demonstration of the tool, as well as walking through some of its core capabilities, functions, what you can do with it, of course, and then where we are going with it in the future. Before we get started, I'd like to hear a little bit more about the folks that we have attending so far. And so you should be seeing a list of poll questions on your screen. So first and foremost, we want to get a sense of what types of organizations you represent so we can better tailor our webinar to those that are participating. So I will leave this, of course, poll questions up there until we get a good set of respondents on it. But that's the first question, is to get a sense what company you're from, what your primary role is at that company. If you're not seeing perfect alignment, you of course can select other, or whichever one best relates to the role that you do. Have you heard of the tool before? We've had a beta tool for a little while now, so you might have actually already used it. If this is the first time you've used it, let us know that too. We're always excited to see some of our beta users coming back to continue using the tool. Ultimately, have you or your organization ever procured off-site energy from a utility program directly through a PPA, a physical PPA, virtual agreement, those types of things? Just trying to get a sense of if you've done this before, or if at least you've considered or are exploring these types of pathways to meet your own energy goals. So those are the 5 questions that we have to get us started today. I'm going to let this stay open for just a minute longer so we can get a few more folks to get a chance to respond to it before we go ahead and get fully started. For those of you that are not aware, of course, we are the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, where we're one of 17 national laboratories, all housed within the U.S. Department of Energy. And NREL is uniquely focused on solving energy challenges and problems, and also helping stakeholders procure their own energy and make their own energy decisions. And that is what PAT is designed to do. All right, let me end the poll and share those results with folks. So ultimately, we got a lot of private companies out there, some universities, state, local nonprofits. And thankfully for all of you today, the PAT tool can be used for each and every one of you to solve different challenges that you may have. Good to see a wide distribution of the types of folks here on the call. And like I said, PAT is a first step tool, so it should be able to help you consider options regardless of where you sit in an organization. We designed it to be user friendly. A lot of you, this will be the first time you've seen it, which is great. You'll get a live demonstration of the tool. For those of you that have heard of it but haven't used it, or those that have used it, there's been a lot of changes to the tool, so you might find something new. And there's a lot of new features that might be beneficial to you. A lot of you have procured offsite energy, which is great to hear. You might have also just done that directly through your utility service provider. And ultimately, you would have already done it through your just participating or being served by utility anyway. And so today, you're going to get a little bit more sense of how you can explore some of your procurement options going forward for new projects that you might be considering, or new facilities that you might otherwise be considering. All right, thanks so much for participating in that. We're going to have one more poll later on in this presentation, so you'll get another chance to participate. I wanted to remind everyone that this webinar is going to be recorded, and the slides will be made available after the presentation. So if you don't catch something or you want to go back and look at it, you'll be able to do that for this presentation. Ultimately, your microphones and video will be muted for the entirety of the webinar. However, you can submit questions to the Q&A box, or you can use the chat function. We'll be monitoring both of those pathways to submit your questions. If neither of those works for you, or you're unable to figure them out, we'll also have an email that you can reach out to, either Shishmita or I or the PAT team, to get your questions answered at that point in time as well after the webinar. And so like I said, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to pass it over to Sushmita to give you a little bit of an overview of the tool before she jumps into that demo I mentioned earlier. Sushmita, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. Welcome, everyone. My name is Sushmita Jena. I'm a researcher here at the lab, and Jeff and we have been working on this tool for quite some time, and it's very exciting that we are finally presenting this tool to all of you. So welcome. Before we really jump in, I want to talk today. We are introducing the Procurement Analysis Tool, or PAT, like we call it, and you will hear me calling it PAT for the rest of the presentation today. It's a no-charge web-based platform built to help organizations analyze their off-site energy procurement options. So what can it really do? What kind of questions can it answer? That's what we are trying to discuss on this slide. And PAT addresses key questions, including what energy procurement options exist by location, how do those options really align with user objectives, and how does the value of different energy technologies vary across different regions, and also how do costs and impacts compare. You can access PAT as of now, and it's available at www.pat.nrel.gov. I've also dropped it in the chat for those of you who want to use it from there. It's also available on the screen itself with a QR code. With that, next slide, please. Okay. Let's look at the PAT setup itself. And in the PAT setup, we first want to discuss about the key inputs and outputs of PAT. PAT is designed to streamline energy procurement planning through a stepwise process. On the left side of the screen, you're seeing all the different inputs that go into the PAT. So there is the load aggregation group. Users aggregate electric load by region, facility type, or size, entering specific information such as annual usage, address, and the utility itself, that is utility or a load serving entity. And they also provide some type of user preference. And by that, we mean a few questions, really. It's pretty simple like that. And PAT collects inputs via these 7 concise questions on contracting experience, price certainty, location, resource type, financial risk, that the risk appetite that you have, balancing authority, and objectives, each informing the results, personalization to your needs, your requirements. On the right side of the screen, you would see the output side of PAT. And on the output side, you're seeing procurement options. That's one of the outputs of PAT. Users see available solutions such as green tariffs, green pricing, competitive suppliers, unbundled RECs or renewable energy certificates, community solar and power purchase agreements based on their utility and preferences. The other output of PAT would be the resource regions, and the tool optimizes resource selection by cost, emissions, grid value, that's the value of electricity, or a combined metric, that's all the 3 combined. The next slide, please. In this slide, we're trying to tell a little bit about how really PAT works on the back end and what happens under the hood and what goes into really developing these inputs and outputs for the final results. So PAT's analytics are informed by NREL's extensive data and modeling work. First comes the energy supply curves, and PAT uses clustered supply curve analysis for US grid balancing regions, along with annual technology baseline, or ATB as we call it here at NREL, one of the flagship data sets of NREL. It applies NREL's latest technology design and cost information into PAT. And then there is the Cambium data set, which incorporates projected cost, operational data, and emissions data through 2050. All of this for system performance, including battery dispatch. It leverages SAM, the System Advisory Model, or SAM, ensuring results reflect operational realities and future market scenarios. All the data is analyzed over a 25-year system lifetime, yielding comparative intelligence on costs, grid value, and emissions. So that's basically how PAT really works. And on slide 6, which is the next slide, please, Jeff. PAT can analyze multiple customer use cases. Here, we want to emphasize that PAT was developed for a broad set of customer user groups. Commercial and industrial buyers can evaluate options across all their US facilities, and this should not be new. This is offsite tool. Local governments and agencies may scope city and regional operations to help their energy planning process. So it is for local governments as well. Colleges, universities, and campuses get tailored analysis for academic and housing energy use. So if you are a university and you have multiple campuses, you're able to do that type of analysis using PAT. And utilities and energy providers can evaluate potential program interest as well. Regulators and commissions may use PAT for program planning and market review. So there is something for everyone, all kinds of user groups in PAT, and it's not just the buyer community or one type of buyer community who can take advantage of PAT. That's the key message I want to leave you with. The next slide, please. Okay, challenges. The challenges that you are seeing here in these little circles at the very top, the blue circles, those are the challenges that the key procurement challenges that we have seen. And we get it. Energy procurement remains complex due to a variety of reasons. Some of them are regional diversity, competing priorities, variable demands, and differing technology opportunities. PAT is trying to overcome, helps you overcome these challenges by, I want to say, tailoring the recommendations to geography, utility territory, and goals. You're able to do that through the user preference options via PAT. By comparing technologies by cost, grid value, and emissions, and by allowing grouped facility analysis. That's multiple facilities can be grouped into one load aggregation group, like I mentioned earlier. And by using intuitive data entry for actionable steps and identifying the best fit solutions for each unique circumstance. With that, I think we are getting into the more exciting part. The next slide, please, Jeff. We will begin the live demo shortly. And here, before proceeding with the live demo, I want to once again emphasize that you can access PAT at pat.nrel.gov. This demonstration will illustrate the step-by-step workflow from initial scenario creation to reviewing actionable procurement outputs. Also, please note that all the data shown today is for demonstration purposes only and does not represent actual procurement options or recommendations that we are making here. With that, we will jump into the tool itself. It'll take me a few seconds to take the screen over from Jeff here and share my screen. Jeff, can you confirm you're seeing my screen?
I can confirm.
Great. Okay, so this is the homepage of the procurement analysis tool. Like I mentioned at the very top, pat.nrel.gov. That's how you can access this this page and the tool itself, and it's absolutely free of charge for you. And on the homepage, there is a lot of information. Like I'm just quickly scrolling, won't be spending time here, but I want to describe what a scenario really looks like. That's where I'll spend most of my time. But you can browse through the main page and you will see a lot of information that many of your questions can be answered here. And I have already logged in. If you were not logged in, if you were just looking at the page, you will not see the FAQ bit, but everything else remains the same. So since I've logged in, I can also see the FAQs. That's what I'm trying to say. So after logging in, I'm going to just go into the scenario pages. That's where the magic really happens. And you will see a lot of scenarios here for me because I keep testing it. But if you were to go and start a new scenario, you would start here. That's a create the scenario page, a simple page here. I'll talk a little bit more about the page itself. But for today's discussion, I have already created a scenario, and I'd be talking through the workflow of that scenario. It's called NREL New, and I'm going to click on this while I talk a little bit about this page itself. So we begin. This is the first step of the tool. So at the very top, you're seeing this little line here, which is basic info, locations, and filter. This line sort of represents the workflow of the tool. The first three represent the input part, and the last three are the output part. So in the walkthrough itself, the scenarios and inputs in this, we begin with the scenario definition, which constitutes step one of the process. At this stage, users define the scope of the analysis by creating a unique scenario. To do so, the users enter a scenario name like I have entered here. It's called NREL New. You can edit it at any point, but right now that's what it's called. Supporting the management of multiple procurement analysis. Next, the users specify an energy goal. So here I've put 80%. You can put it at 50%, 20%, whatever you want, between 0 to 100, and targeted to be met with new utility scale energy. So that's one of the key points. This is new energy. This is not existing energy that you can procure from, but this is new energy. It is important to note that this goal is focused solely on offsite utility scale procurement. So on-site is not included in this. Existing on-site installations or other purchase agreements that you might have should not be factored into the target. That's between the 0 and 100%. You should not be including that. You should be thinking about the new energy that you want to procure. The platform is designed for iterative planning. Like I just said, I can change it to 50%. I can change it to anything. I can keep coming back to this scene and keep changing it. So that's why we think of it as a iterative planning process, allowing users to update scenarios, inputs at any time. And for some reason, should the user's interests lean more towards, let's say, on-site solution, then they are redirected to REOPT or SAM, the other models and tools that NREL has, and those links are provided here, which are more appropriate for that type of analysis. With that, you will save and continue, and you will go to the next page, which is, in this case, the locations page. So this is step two, again, as a reminder. Step two in the PAT workflow involves defining load aggregation groups. Here, users provide details about relevant physical location and the respective electricity consumption of their facilities. Facilities may be grouped strategically by geography, load, or procurement objectives. Each group is evaluated separately. So within each of these groups, so in this case, my two groups here are NREL DC and NREL Colorado. I'll talk a little bit more about this, but yeah, you can strategically group them by geography, by the size of your load, small, big, however you want to define it, or procurement objectives. Each group is evaluated separately, and results are tailored accordingly. Within each group, users enter detailed information for each facility, including name, annual consumption in megawatt hours, and the address, and utility provider or load serving entity. If there is not a utility, but someone else is your load serving entity. Importantly, the platform aggregates the annual electricity load across all group facilities, which is critical for identifying scalable procurement opportunities. To address, again, to support regional planning and ensure data accuracy, each facility can be visualized on a map, highlighting both resource potential and utility service areas, which is something that I will talk about throughout this conversation. But back to the to the screen itself, if you want to add a group, this is that green, the blue button that you're seeing. You can add a new group by simply naming it something. I'm not going to do it because the setup is such that I want to focus on some the types of results that Pat can produce. But you can add multiple groups within one scenario. So the scenario is the top, multiple groups can be added. And then within the groups itself, you would have to add individual facilities or at least one facility in case you don't have multiple facilities to really analyze. You will be adding at least one facility. So we're still within step 2, and the tool facilitates the addition of individual facilities to groups defined by shared aggregation strategy. In this case, we have just decided that NREL Colorado and all their campuses in Colorado will be within one load aggregation group, but we have 2 facilities. One is the Flatiron campus and one is the Golden campus, and they will be 2 different facilities that we will analyze through this. And for each facility, users specify its name, annual electricity consumption, location, physical location, and the serving utility provider. This functionality allows the representation of multiple campuses, like in this case that you are seeing business units or geographic clusters for collaborative procurement planning. And I'm just going to open one of this, and I'm going to show what the facility addition really looks like. So once you start adding facilities, this is what it looks like. Really, it's a very simple input page. You add a name of the facility. You can put a facility annual load in megawatt hour. In this case, I've just put 1,000,000 megawatt hour, and I have put the address where the power is required, and I have selected the load serving entity or the utility provider in this case. If there are multiple utility providers, you will get options to change them. If you don't have, and there's only one provider, that will be selected for you default. Here in this case, we have multiples, and so I have to select it manually. And I'm going to so once you fill this up, you say add facility, and it's already available in your dashboard. But for me, it is already available because I've added it, didn't want to do it here. Same for the Flatiron campus. So you can add the same information that for different campuses or different units. And if you were to add a new one, this is where you would go and you'd see an empty form here. That is that's what this page is all about. I am saving the map. I will briefly open the map and show you this in the map. This is what it looks like. So in Colorado, I have selected 2 locations, and here one in NREL DC. And you will see when I show you the map subsequently how this really changes. So right now you're just looking at where I am, where I want the power, but you will eventually see what options are available over there. So, and also I want to emphasize that selection of the correct utility is important because the procurement options are based on the utility. That's the unit based on which we are able to give you the procurement options that are available in that service territory. Now I will save and continue and move to the next page, which is, this is the filters page. We are in step 3. This is the last input page. So in step 3, users encounter the filter question page. This is the final step of the input process, like I was discussing just now, and serves to refine and tailor the resulting procurement recommendations. Users respond to up to 9 structured questions. It's actually 7 plus 2, and so I'll show you how that really plays out. And their financial preferences, environmental priorities, desired grid impacts, and pertinent geographic considerations. The responses inform which procurement options are feasible in a specified territory and improve the specificity of our recommendations, or PAT's recommendations, ensuring that outputs align closely with user objectives, risk tolerance, and regional constraints. The platform simplifies what can otherwise be a very complex decision-making process by translating these user inputs into clear and actionable procurement guidance. Each filter question here is accompanied by explanatory info bubble. In case you were wondering why am I being asked this question, then you could really access that info bubble and you will see what's happening there. And here, if you see on the very left of my screen, you will see the questions themselves, and then you have options to answer yes, no, or unsure, and you can proceed with the next question, where we're talking about, are you willing to take on financial risk? And why do we ask this question? All of this. So if you look at why do we ask this question, we have the information that that you're wondering about. Why is this question important? And then do you only want to see options with long-term price certainty? You can say yes, no, or unsure. Here we have already picked unsure. For each of these questions, the format is very simple. It's a yes, no, unsure, and there's a why do we ask for more information on the questions itself. This is a question which helps you prioritize what do you value. I mean, if you want to prioritize all the resource regions by cost, then you can pick cost or any other that you want. You also have a chance to change this at any point, that is, come back and change it. So that's the iterative part that I was talking about. And then we have this question, which is a geography question. And do you have a preference on where the project is located? If you say yes, you have to answer these follow-up questions. If you say no, you don't have to answer these. And this is where the filter questions ends. But because I said yes, I have to answer these couple of more questions here. And that's everything about the filter questions itself. And I will move on to the next one. Here on the procurement options. So what procurement options? So this is where the results, if you note, that's where this is the output part of the whole walkthrough. And this is step 4, and this is where you start seeing the procurement options themselves. So, and upon entering all the inputs, users are directed to the procurement options page, which is the 4th page here, and the first stage of the analytical outputs. Here, procurement pathways are presented, organized by previously defined load aggregation groups. So the load aggregation group NREL Colorado is what you are seeing here. If I switch tabs and click on NREL DC, then the procurement options follow, and these are the NREL DC procurement options. So you can toggle between your multiple load aggregation groups, as many as you have here. In this case, I have 2. And the options displayed are grounded in the latest 2025 procurement options data book. That's the data book that we use to update all these procurement options, include relevant utility scale contract types, such as power purchase agreements, green tariffs, and so on. And PAT is transparent regarding the procurement pathways. If a particular option is unavailable to you, the platform clearly indicates that the underlying reason why it is not available to you, whether they pertain to user input or utility constraints. And this initial output enables the user to focus on realistic actionable procurement pathways before comparing other attributes such as cost, grid value, and projected emissions. So that's the benefit of that. Also, because it is flexible, if you want to include, let's say, bilateral agreement in the page that I am showing, which is for NREL Colorado, if you want to include bilateral agreements, that is, you are a large load customer and you want to make a one-time negotiation with your utility, you can simply select it. It does not stop you. But based on all the way you answered all the questions, these are the options that would most work for you. That's the message that we want to really emphasize on here. So unbundled RECs is something that's available, but if you were to look at bilateral agreements or some agreement that works within the utility service territory, that option is available. You can simply select it and include it in your analysis. That's what this is about. NREL DC, similar. These options are available here. In DC, we have competitive supplier, but the other options are not available. But that doesn't stop me from including something like bilateral agreement. That said, I will save and continue and reach the second the second part of the output. This is step 5 of the whole process. The next stage really represents the resource regions page. That's the page that you are looking at. And representing the second set of the analytical outputs, this page employs model data rather than profiles of existing projects to prioritize geographic regions that can satisfy the scenario's energy objective. Each region is ranked in accordance with the 3 metrics. That's marginal cost, the investment, and the operating cost calculated over the 25-year project lifetime. Grid value, the estimated market revenue of revenue potential, and the avoided emissions. Based on that, as determined by the Cambium data, you will see all the options. And the regions are ranked based on the scenario's user-defined preferences already. The information draws directly from the NREL data sets that I mentioned earlier during what goes into PAT, including the Cambium data and the ATB cost benchmarks to ensure analytical rigor and policy relevance. And I will just scroll through this a little bit and show, similar to what was happening in the load aggregation page and the filters page, you have the NREL Colorado tab. That's your first load aggregation group. And then there is the NREL DC tab. You can keep toggling between the two if you wanted to see any information. That's right up top in the resource regions page. And since I'm at the Colorado page, the Colorado load aggregation group, the first thing that you see is the summary of what I wanted and how much of it is available and whether the goals are met or not, what kind of default resources are selected based on my preference again. Remember, the preference here is between cost savings, emissions reduction, or grid value, or a combination of all 3. If I toggle between them and choose different options, I can choose them. But since in the filter questions itself, I had told cost, it had selected the cost options for me at the very beginning. So if I select these 3 like they were selected, I'm able to meet my goals. And if I want to change them, if I want to move to other locations within this or something at the bottom, I'm able to choose all of them also. And if you keep scrolling to the right, you get more information about the cost saving and emissions reduction, grid value, etc. Apart from that, I wanted to just spend a minute here on the map. I'm just going to open the map for a little bit and show. Sorry. Yeah. You should be seeing a map of the US, and I'm just going to keep blowing it up till you are able to see this load aggregation group.
Yeah, Shashmita, I think it's a screen thing. So we're seeing your original screen. I think that's a Zoom thing. So there's for folks to know that Shashmita just clicked on that box, and when you're in the PAT tool, it'll open in a new window and you can zoom into it, but you're just not seeing that the way the Zoom is sharing the screen right now. So yeah.
Okay. I apologize for that, but once you open the map, you will basically see your locations and the resource regions and how they are spread out within the state itself, because I had put a preference that I would want the resources within the state. And it's unfortunate we're not able to see it right now, but that's how they're laid out. And at any point, once again, I'll close the map here and show at any point I can toggle between different resources, select or deselect different resources, and also keep changing my optimization criteria between cost savings, emissions potential, or grid value, and the combined. So that is what I can do. I'm just going to keep these selected so that I can meet my goals. And again, to emphasize on this page, the users have the flexibility and flexibility to change between multiple toggles here. Now I will, for DC, I need to select a resource. Okay. I'm saving, and I will continue to the last page, which is the PAT results page. It's a combination of the procurement and the resource region page. So finally, the consolidated results are on this last page of the workflow. This page offers a comprehensive summary of all scenario inputs and analytical outcomes, including the energy goal, preferred procurement options, defined load aggregation groups, prioritized based on however you want to prioritize it. The user interface is designed for clarity and ease of navigation. They are all actionable buttons here, and you can keep clicking between them, allowing users to quickly trace how their decision and filter responses inform the ultimate recommendation. So you can, like I mentioned, the iterative planning process. Scenario results are available for downloads. You can download most of this information already, and supporting further internal review, presentation, and detailed analysis. It's important to note here that while PAT provides a strong foundation, analytical foundation, it is designed to primarily support energy planning and screening. So results should be considered the beginning of a process of an informed procurement journey rather than the conclusion. Here, I'll talk about much of this in the slides as well, but I just wanted to spend some time in the results page, the Colorado summary and the DC summary. If you had multiple load aggregation groups, all of them would be stacked one after the other. And if you wanted to see the resource regions that you selected, you can just open this tab and you can see them. Same with the procurement options, and same with the locations itself. All of that is consolidated in here. And the map that I was talking about, that's also available in the same one. It's unfortunate it's not completely opening but for you to see, but all of it is available here. That really concludes our live demo. So Jeff, back to you for the slides, please.
And if you stop sharing, Shashmita, I'll be able to reshare the slides.
Yes.
Thank you. Give me a second. There they are. Should be loading, and you should see them now, Shashmita.
Yes. This is slide 9. This is the we want to emphasize that this is the first step of your energy procurement journey, and PAT is a first of its kind tool designed to help users understand their energy options. It does not provide real projects. These are modeled results that users can pursue to demand today. To better visualize what PAT does, we organize it into, again, generally five-step framework and what you need to do after this. In short, PAT is a foundational step in your energy procurement process to help users understand what regions and technologies they might consider to meet their objectives. If users are interested in advancing further, they might consider taking some of the follow-on actions from viewing results, convening stakeholders, pursuing requests for proposals, RFPs, or other procurement processes and tracking results of their action. Again, as a reminder, just want to emphasize that it's not intended to present users with a list of existing generation assets. So all the resource regions are not generation assets. Nor does PAT provide detailed financial analysis of particular resource regions. Instead, PAT is best suited as a strategic planning tool and a screening tool to help you determine your next steps as you pursue utility energy resources. The next slide, please. Here are the key takeaways. I will just very briefly touch on it. And first, PAT supports customized scenario analysis by allowing users to input their own facility and electricity consumption data. This flexible approach enables tailored assessment specific to each organization's needs, as opposed to keeping it very generic. Second, PAT helps users evaluate various energy resources and compare procurement pathways, whether considering PPAs or tariffs or other options. It provides a comprehensive platform by side-by-side analysis. The third one here is the tool enables decision-making that balances important factors such as cost, grid value, and emissions, and any other buyer preference that we are able to accommodate at this point. This balanced approach ensures that procurement strategies align with both financial and any other objectives that you have through this procurement journey. Fourth, PAT serves a wide range of users. So it's not limited to only big buyers, but it's about all kinds of users, like I mentioned previously. So including software and cloud operators or IT departments, cities, campuses, companies, utilities, and regulators. So it's a broad range of users who could use PAT. And in addition to these core capabilities, PAT functions as a web-based self-service energy procurement assistant, aiding voluntary energy procurement efforts by commercial and industrial buyers. It analyzes utility scale energy options and serves as a screening tool. And together with all of this, these features make PAT a powerful resource to support your organization's journey. As of now, about 240 early adopters nationwide are using PAT as we speak. And yeah, we can't wait for all of you to jump in and start using the tool. The next slide, please, Jeff. Okay, we're almost at the end here. I mean, if you were to, like Jeff mentioned, we have, as we approach to this, and I'd like to just highlight some of the resources available to support your continued use of PAT. If you have questions at any point, we encourage you to start with exploring the FAQs, the section on the PAT website. Remember, you will be able to access it only when you log in. If you don't log in, you're not able to access the FAQs. So it's behind the login. The FAQ provides guidance on a variety of topics that some of you have asked us during the registration, and such as user preferences and procurement options, integration with other tools, data updates, and more. Otherwise, you can always feel free to write to us at patch.support@nrel.gov or to Jeff and me directly on our email as well. That's everything that I had, Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you, Shishmita. You should be able to hear me now too. I wanted to thank everyone for putting their questions into the chat. And there's still plenty of time for folks to add more questions to the chat also. And we'll address those questions as we get them. And we've also answered some already online, but I wanted to reiterate those answers for folks that maybe can't see the Q&A or are just listening to this recording after the fact. So one of the fundamental questions and one of the things Shishmita pointed out is around what kinds of resource regions PAT is producing. So the question was, can I actually procure real projects? Are generators power generators putting their projects directly into PAT so that you can then follow up with them and pursue those projects? No, that is not what PAT is doing. PAT is modeling resource regions where you could conceivably construct a project and then we produce what we think the production of that project could be, the cost to install that project, and what potential grid revenue it might receive based on the needs of the grid at that given location or within that utility service territory or balancing authority. In addition, we're also already modeling what we think the grid is going to procure or install just to meet grid needs. So what this is really looking at is going to meet your own needs or meet new needs, going beyond what the grid is otherwise going to produce, so that you can also be able to emphasize your additionality preferences if you have those, or otherwise procure power that the utility isn't otherwise planning to produce just to meet their overall demand. So like I said, just doubling down that these are resource regions, they are not existing projects, like Shishmita's iterated a couple of times. And that's why this is a first step tool. It's designed to help you get a sense of where you might procure projects from. It might also help you understand, okay, well, we got some RFPs and they're actually also aligned with what we're seeing in PAT. There are some research regions there, and unsurprisingly, we're getting a project from that area because there's a good opportunity in terms of high resource potential, and it looks like a good spot to connect to the grid to offer value. So that was the first one I wanted to point out. The second one I wanted to point out was relative to entering annual load into the tool. There was also a question about should you put in your total load for a facility or just the component that you're trying to procure new renewable energy for. You can actually do it either way. So the most common use case would be, okay, we're already securing 20% of this facility's load from renewables, whether that's on-site or through some other procurement pathway. We really want to look at how do we offset the other 60, 80% with some type of energy that we're not currently getting from the utility or through the current procurement pathway we have. And then you can model that. That's exactly what Shishmita was showing. Alternatively, you could say, you know what, we're not going to do that procurement pathway for that 20%. We were doing it offsite through green power purchasing or whatever we were doing. We actually want to do it now through a green tariff or through a PPA or something else. You might model all of it then. So you can do either one of those use cases in the tool. And I should have paused here to say, Shishmita, any comments you'd add for either one of those questions?
No, I think you summed it up perfectly well. Thanks, Jeff.
Perfect. The next question was, does PAT look at interconnection queue data as an input to narrow down resource regions where generators are already trying to connect? We do evaluate, we actually use NREL tools and models like REEDS and our, we use our REEDS model and others to evaluate what we think the grid is going to look like through 2050. And that means what is going to already be deployed, what is the grid mix going to look like, and what are the remaining resource regions that would exist for you to procure power that isn't already going to be procured. So in that context, we are considering interconnection data and what the queue looks like because we are modeling through 2050 what's going to happen to the grid to evaluate what those install costs are going to be, the grid value, and what resource potential is going to be there. And so going forward, though, if interconnection queues evolve, we'll also be pulling that into what we do with our internal models for how we model the grid, but also models are only as good as the data that is in them, and as the grid or as the market changes, that can be influenced. So we do update the tool every year, but we also don't have visibility into how interconnection timelines might vary in different areas. That does exist in other tools, and that could be an area to expand this tool going forward. And we are going to be actively looking into that. How do we add more context for siting considerations like interconnection and also other, other issues, including environmental reviews, et cetera, that can be influenced relative to siting. When we think about new extensions of the tool, there was another request in the chat about, hey, can we add bulk uploads of all our facilities like you can do in Energy Star and some other platforms? At current, we cannot accommodate that. So you'll have to end up entering all of your facilities manually in the first scenario you run. You don't have to enter them all at once. You could enter just for one region or whatever you want. Once you've entered them, though, you can clone your scenarios. You can reuse those facilities, so you only have to enter them once. Having said that, that is an area that we're looking at to expand the tool as well going forward. I'm actually going to pause my questions here because that's another poll we have for you, which is just actually to ask you that very question, which is, what did you, let me see, I want to go back. Let me relaunch our other poll so you can actually answer that question for us in real time. And some of you have already put this into the chat already. So we're actually looking to see what type of information was most helpful to you in what you saw today, or was there something that could be more helpful that you didn't see that you'd like to see in the tool? That would be things like that bulk power upload, like having interconnection queue data, like please do submit your answers to this, because this will actively help our pipeline or our roadmap for making decisions on how we move forward with the tool. So I wanted to put that out there so that you can put in your answers to that. I'm going to leave that one open as we answer more of the questions. You can also use the chat or the Q&A box if you would like as well, but you can answer directly into the poll question too. All right, and let me see. All right, and there was again another question, could you add or expand to Alaska or Hawaii? As I mentioned in the chat right now, and Shashmita mentioned, it's a contiguous 48 states, the lower 48. We are looking at opportunities to expand to Alaska and Hawaii. In fact, we have limitations in Alaska and Hawaii across a lot of NREL tools. And so as we find new ways and innovative ways to incorporate those states, we'll be looking to incorporate what we can into PAT. All right. All right, and it says, another question is, what are the current limitations to being able to model existing procurement options? I'm not sure I'm clear on the value of the tool if the results represent non-existent procurement options. So ultimately, the procurement options you're seeing here, we're talking about two things, right? We're talking about resource regions where you might procure a project where power might come from, and secondarily, the existing procurement pathways that exist where you could partner with a utility, you can partner with a competitive supplier, you could partner to get community solar, you might partner through green tariffs, power purchase agreements, et cetera, to get that power from a given location. We are identifying what procurement pathways exist given the unique regulatory structure for the facilities that you have entered. So if you're in PJM service territory, you might have different options available to you than you might have in utility service territory in the Southeast, in the West, in the Midwest, et cetera. So we think that it's actually beneficial in two ways. One, this is the first step to see how much power might you actually need, or how many projects might you actually need to procure whatever your goal is, and what does that look like, or how do they compare with each other geographically, cost, emissions, and otherwise. And also, secondarily, how might you procure whatever power you might want to meet from the different options that exist. Now, we also offer over there that, especially for state and utility regulators, it's possible they might develop new programs. And so the tool also is designed to allow for when there is not an actual pathway to pursue power from, say, community solar or power purchase agreements or a green tariff or whatever, maybe the utility designs a green tariff program and they could incorporate what those parameters might be and see what that might look like if they, so a couple facilities that they're working with in their utility service territory are interested in those projects or interested in those types of programs. And so and that would be in that case where maybe that program doesn't exist yet, but could. The tool is very clear though on what procurement options exist for you today in your utility service territories that you're residing in, so you can have that real-time information to make decisions going forward. Now, those decisions would, of course, have to be based on projects that you work through, such as an RFP process or something else, to actually get projects that are real in those locations that exist. All right. Awesome, and people are also adding in feedback for examples of things that we can include. And there's still that option is available to you in the poll as well for those that haven't. All right, let's see, next question. There's a question on, can you elaborate on tariffs or green tariffs and their impacts to local purchasers, assuming all supplies are domestic? I think, Shushmita, that one's more or less just talking about what the benefits of green tariffs might be to a customer. If I'm reading that correctly, all supplies are domestic, and that also be dependent on what supply they're procuring. Shushmita, might you comment a little bit more on how green tariffs are structured and
Sure.
why purchasers pursue them?
Yeah. Green tariffs typically happen within a vertically integrated market. So where the markets have not been restructured, that's where we will see these green tariffs. They're offered by the utility, sometimes called also bilateral contracts or utility renewable contracts. They have different names, but essentially they are a tariff. There's a special tariff that's available for certain types of customers, typically large customers who are in a vertically integrated market. They would want to procure through these programs. They open a program which has a certain megawatt capacity, and they try to offer it to multiple customers. So it's sort of an aggregation, if you will. And this is an aggregation that the utility is doing for you. You are not doing an aggregation yourself, but they have just offered a program. Multiple users, big, small, large, small, anyone can actually subscribe through those programs. You have the flexibility to somewhat flexibility to dictate what type of resources can be used and so on, because it is a sleeved PPA essentially. So you have some flexibility, unlike something which is a pricing or a subscriber-based program, which is sometimes called green pricing. In those pricing programs, like I mentioned, it's a subscriber program. You can subscribe and unsubscribe at will, and there is like a minimum requirement of, I think, about 30 days or so. They are not complex, so very low entry barrier. Anyone who is within a utility service territory that offers a green pricing is able to do it from their own customer portal. They are simpler products as such, as compared to a green tariff. Yeah, that's about green tariff.
Thank you, Shushmita. And I think we've got just enough time. I can rapid fire a couple more questions. And if we haven't fully answered your question, or you have a follow-on to it, just throw it in the chat or Q&A as well. We probably won't be able to get to it today, but we will be able to look at it and review it going forward. The other question I see in there is 3 pillars considered for PPA procurement. Ultimately, we do offer a set of resources for folks that want to pursue power purchase agreements, if that's what they want to do, based on some of the outputs in the tool. And so I'm not sure exactly if we showcase resources relative to those 3 pillars or not, but we'll investigate what we have there. But like I said, this is the first step in the process, and so we do provide some resources for PPAs and other procurement options should you want to pursue those, to get a better sense of what they entail. The next question was, how does this relate to SAM for generators? What added value does it have for prospective or existing developers of power? I wanted to reiterate that this tool is designed for purchasers of power. So we're looking at folks that might be looking to offset their power from data centers, from their existing facilities, college institutions, et cetera. And so the value for them is to see where they might actually procure power from developers. And we are considering and using SAM and other tools to identify what resource regions exist, how many megawatts might be associated with a resource region if you actually develop projects there. And so this one is really not designed so much for generators of power so much as for those that are pursuing power from particular generators. There's also a question in there about, could we do a better job of either working with existing developers so that they could have their prospective projects in the tool, or otherwise provide more real-time information on costs or other grid value or instruction costs, et cetera. And those are all really great opportunities that we'd be happy to pursue and look at going forward, because again, this is the first of a kind tool here at NREL, and a first generation of it. We went from beta to our first publicly launched tool here with Pat. And so we'll be taking all of your feedback and how we pursue changes going forward. So with that, I'm going to end the poll. I'm going to apologize for anyone's questions that we were not able to answer, but like I said, you should have our email address. It's in the chat, or it's on the screen, patsupport@nrel.gov, so you can reach out to us with any questions you have hereafter and going forward. So thank you for participating today, joining us today, and hopefully using the tool going forward. And at this point, I will end the webinar.